Pocho sampo pagyo trashi pa tuche tempe chinle yarngoda pelge drolor zambe zeparachi pande lame shabla solvade Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajra Sumatimo Nisha San Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradhar Sumatimo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajrad Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om A Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nisha Sanekar Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nishasan Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nishasanekar Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyuke Kudan Dagi Alu Pakyuke Sungdan Dagi Ngam Pakyuke Tukdan Dagi Yin Ten Yerme Chiktu Chingi alo makyuke kudan dagilu makyuke sundan daginga makyuke tukdan dagiyi ten yerme chiktu chingi alo Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Muni Swaha Tayata Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisvahaya Tayata Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisvahaya Tayata Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisvahaya Sashi Pöge Chushi Meto Chan Riralin Shi Nide Gembadi Sange Shindu Mikde Ulwargi Drugu Namda Shingla Chöpar Sho Yidamang Guru Radna Mindrala Kamniryata Yami Sange Chodan Tsoge Chonamla Jancho Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sanamki Drola Pinchara Sange Drupar sho sangye chodan tsoge chonamla jancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchra sangye drupar sho sangye chodan tsoge chonamla jancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchra sangye drupar sho.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. As we said this morning, once we understand something, first we understand it. First there's a whole path to follow, to take us from this understanding to the realization. And Buddha Shakyamuni it reminds us again and again in these teachings that the objective is not to understand but to be, and the essence of this teachings of this Heart Sutra show us in a very essential, very clear way. So, as I explained in a very simple way through the mantra Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhi Soha, let's do a reading of the sutra, slightly commented. I mean, of course, we could explain word for word, but let's do a reading that's slightly commentated. In Sanskrit, it's Bhagavati Prajnaparamita Ritraya. In Tibetan, Chomden Dema Sherabki Parutu Chimpe Nimpo. In English, it's the heart of far-reaching, discriminating awareness, the vanquishing lady suppressing all. So it's the essence of the perfection of wisdom. Chomden Dema, just from the title, comes Bhagavati. Bhagawan is masculine. Bhagavati is feminine. So Chomden Dema is Bhagavati. So Chomden means to eliminate. Chomden De. Chomden, he or she who possesses. The one who has eliminated what we're talking about. We're talking about ignorance. So Chomden Dema, she who has vanquished over ignorance. Bhagavati. Chomden Dema, Bhagavati. So it's feminine. And here there's an important point, because the perfection of wisdom is seen as also, is called also the mother of all Buddhas. That's why we have the personification of the perfection of wisdom, which is is this the Prajnaparamita. So here, the statue that we have here in stone near that door, that's the Prajnaparamita. So Prajnaparamita is the personification, the embodiment of wisdom, and it's represented in the feminine, also called the mother of all Buddhas. The mother of all Buddhas also because the mother is she who gives us life. Without the mother, there's no life. Someone might say there's also the father, but first of all, there's first and foremost there's the mother, the container who gives life, who permits life. So the mother of all Buddhas is wisdom, that which allows someone to get out of suffering and reach this state of excellent peace. It's through this change of paradigm, correct view of reality. It's the ultimate wisdom, the perfection of wisdom. So, and the father of all the Buddhas is compassion, love and compassion that gives the energy, but who allows us to get out of the suffering is wisdom. So, without wisdom, without love, compassion, and wisdom, there's no, we can't get out of samsara, but without taking too much time. So wisdom is feminine, love and compassion is considered masculine. And then we get into other things. So, Chomden Dema, Shariputra Chimpe Nimpo, or the Bhagavati Prajnaparamita. Nimpo is heart. Prajnaparamita Hridaya, the essence. Prajna means wisdom, and not wisdom, like it's not intellectual wisdom. It's not about understanding things or having much knowledge or knowing how to do things well. So intelligent doesn't necessarily mean wise. A wise mind in this context makes reference to a kind of coherence. Wisdom is seeing what is impermanent as impermanent, what is interdependent as interdependent. This is wisdom. Ignorance is seeing what is impermanent as if it were permanent, what is interdependent as autonomous and objective. So wisdom makes reference to a paradigm, not a conceptual level. So Bhagavati, the vanquishing lady, the destroyer, the perfection, the mother of the perfection of wisdom, her essence, the essence of the mother of the mother of the perfection of wisdom. I prostrate to the Arya 3 jewels, because when they translated from Sanskrit to Tibetan, they would put in a small homage, and according to the homage, you could see what kind of text it was. Here it says, I prostrate to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. All Buddha's sutras start with Leng Shi to contextualize, that it tell us about the story, this kind of setting. And here, when I hear a sutra, I like to imagine. So these words, have I heard. Remember that the sutras were written about 300 years after the death of Buddha. So all sutras start always with Dike Dagi Tupa Du Chinga, which means these words have I heard. Because one told the story to another and then another, etc. These words have I heard. At one time, the vanquishing master surpassing all, the Buddha Shakyamuni, was dwelling at Vulture's Peak, by the royal city of Rajgira, together with a great he skipped them. So at that time, the vanquishing master, surpassing all, was totally absorbed in the absorbed concentration that expresses the multiplicity of phenomena known as the appearance of the profound. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva, great-minded Mahasattva, the Arya Avalokiteshvara, the powerful Lord beholding all, conducting his behaviors around. So one of his, as he was meditating, there were his disciples, and there was also Avalokiteshvara. He was a Mahasattva. He was a being who had already gotten out of his cycle of suffering. So the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, so that means noble one. She was able to get out of the cycle of suffering and able to see reality in a coherent way. And so this makes reference to the inner characteristics of Avalokiteshvara. So it's Arya or Mahasattva. It doesn't mean like colonel, or it's not a title. These are inner qualities. We're describing the qualities, the inner qualities of Avalokiteshvara. So the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, the Arya Avalokiteshvara, conducting his behavior. So he was meditating and reflecting on interdependence, on correct the view of reality, and looking at his 5 aggregates, which are the body, sensation, discernment, your personality, these compositional factors, these aspects of your personality, and then there's also consciousness, this mental continuum. They're called aggregates because the body is not something solid. The sensation is not one, but there are many. That's why they're called aggregates. Is it pumbo? Also means a heap. You know, you make a little heap of earth. So our body, our sensations, it's not one thing, it's a heap. It's accumulation of things. And he saw that its own aggregates they lack inherent existence. So through the power of the Buddha, I jumped something. So these words have I heard. At one time, the vanquishing master, surpassing all, was dwelling at Vulture Peak Mountain at the royal city of Rajgira, together with a great assembly of, this is near Bodh Gaya in India. So he was there on this small hill, this small mountain. It's called Vulture Peak because it looks like it's a place you can go actually and visit today. So he was there together with a great assembly of monastic Sangha and a great assembly of the Bodhisattva Sangha. So he had many, many disciples, monks and also lay people, many disciples together with him. And if you look at the more detailed description, it said that it talked also about the other beings who were present who didn't have a physical body. I talk about just many, many spirits, devas, who were actually there also listening to him. So imagine the Buddha's there and so many disciples there on this hilltop. And Buddha was seated in meditation, and Avalokiteshvara was reflecting on the lack of inherent existence of body and mind, of the 5 aggregates. And then through the the blessings, through the presence of the Buddha that made this possible, the Venerable Shariputra, one of his main disciples, addressed these words to the Bodhisattva great-minded Mahasattva, to Arya Avalokiteshvara. How does any spiritual child with the Buddha family traits need to train who wishes to conduct his or her behavior in profound, far-reaching, discriminating awareness? So he doesn't ask him what is the correct view of reality. I mean, the Tayata, they already knew. What he wants to know what comes after. How can one familiarize oneself? He says the spiritual child with the family traits who wishes to conduct his behavior in profound and far-reaching discriminating awareness.
chöpa nila number tashi pungpo ngabo tedala ya ranshin ki tomba number tao tene sangye ki tu sedan denba sharipu janjo sema sema chima papa cherezi wanjola dike che meso rigi puan rigi pumo kangla la shiragi paradu jimba samo chöpa chepar deba teji dar labar cha mancava una cosa nella traduzione.
Avalokiteshvara asks, how does any spiritual child with the Buddha family traits need to train who wishes to conduct his or her behavior in profound and far-reaching discriminating awareness? And it specifies in Tibetan spiritual daughter or son, because there were, that shows us there were men and there were male and female disciples. So a woman or a man, a daughter or son of the lineage, he who's taken refuge and wants to get out of the cycle of suffering, who has this connection, who wants to also train in the perfection of wisdom, who wants to pass from a simple concept to a realization, what does he need to do? Addressed like that, so Shariputra, the Bodhisattva, great-minded Mahasattva, the Arya Avalokiteshvara, addressed these words to the Venerable son of Sharadati. Shariputra would be the son of Sharavati. So I never really understood the name of Shariputra because Shariputra is actually so often when you look at Buddha, to our right is Shariputra, and to our left is Moggallana normally. But so Sharadati is and then actually. Son of Sharadati means Shariputra. So as any spiritual son with the family traits or spiritual daughter with the family traits who wishes to conduct, And so Avalokiteshvara answers, Shariputra, any spiritual son or spiritual daughter with the family traits who wishes to conduct his or her behavior in the essence of wisdom needs to behold around in detail like this. So you need to do it again and again. You don't just need to understand once. You need to repeat this experience again and again to familiarize yourself. So he or she needs to keep in view fully and in detail the 5 aggregate factors of his or her experience and those as devoid of self-establishing nature. So it's just this process of meditation. It's correct to start with the lack of inherent existence of self. So first self before meditating on the lack of inherent existence of others, of other. So where I look at my 5 aggregates, where am I? Am I my body? Am I where I'm not my body is? Am I then you, little by little, you see I don't exist in an independent way, but exclusively in an interdependent and relational way. So repeatedly, and not just the 5 aggregates, but I mean all phenomena are a lack inherent existence. But one begins with one's own 5 aggregates as devoid of self-establishing nature. Form, voidness. Voidness is form. So tompani sukso. So form is nothing other than emptiness. Emptiness is nothing than form. Form is not separate from voidness. Voidness not separate from form. What has form? That has voidness. What has voidness? That has form. Let's try to understand. Tompani sukso. Sound. Let's give this example. Sound. Could it exist in an autonomous, independent, objective way? Or if sound existed in such a way, what would happen? It would be the same for everyone. It would be permanent. It could never change. Because once something interacts with nothing, it's autonomous, then it just stays the same. It should always be the same thing for everyone. And if we observed that we saw this morning, the sound doesn't exist in an autonomous way and not even objective way. It's relational and it's subjective, right? So the sound exists because it lacks inherent existence. The lack of inherent existence of the sound exists because the sound exists. Let's take something else, the singing bowl. Let's take so this bell couldn't exist if it weren't interdependent. So there's no such thing as an interdependent, autonomous singing bowl or bell. So since there is the bell, then also the lack of inherent existence of the bell exists. So the bell couldn't exist if also the lack of inherent existence of the bell didn't exist. It's a bit like saying interdependence is like how phenomena are, and emptiness is how phenomena are not. We're talking about the same thing, actually. It's like saying the sound, it lacks an objective existence because it exists in a subjective way. It exists in a subjective way because it lacks a subjective existence, and it lacks subjective existence because it exists in a subjective way. When I say form is empty, it means the body. Form makes reference to the body. So when I say the body doesn't exist in an autonomous, subjective, independent way, the way it appears to us, the body lacks inherent existence and independent, objective, and at the same time that that lack of inherent existence doesn't exist um, without the body. I don't know if that's clear. Let me give you an example that's easier. I'm going to try to invent something to simplify this point. Imagine that you take a chocolate ice cream. Are you able to imagine that? Imagine tasting your chocolate ice cream. You can imagine the taste a little bit. The sweet and cool taste of the chocolate ice cream can't exist without the chocolate ice cream. And the chocolate ice cream can't exist without the taste of, or the sensation of coolness and sweetness. So the taste is not the ice cream, and the temperature is not the ice cream. The characteristic is not the ice cream, but without these characteristics, the ice cream doesn't exist. So if I take away those characteristics, that ice cream doesn't exist. And if I take away the ice cream, those characteristics don't exist. So they exist, they mutually dependent. If I take anything and I look at that characteristic, so that lack of inherent existence is a characteristic. It's not a phenomenon of in and of itself. Given into they're of the same nature. One can't exist without the other. I mean, there needs to be the emptiness of something. If I say it's empty, what do you understand if I say it's empty? To understand, you need to ask me two questions. What is empty? And it's empty of what? What's it empty of? If I say it's empty, first of all, you need something that is empty. So the bell is empty, the glass is empty of something. It's empty of milk, it's full of air, but it's empty of milk. When we talk about emptiness, it's a characteristic of everything. The characteristic of everything lacks this objective, independent appearance. And that thing couldn't exist if it didn't have that lack. Because sound, objective, independent, autonomous, it doesn't have a way to exist. There's no way for it to exist. It exists because because it lacks inherent existence. Otherwise, as an objective phenomenon, it doesn't have a basis to sustain itself. I'm trying to summarize. I'm really trying to explain myself more. The bell, for example. How does the bell exist? Is it objective or subjective? It's subjective. Is it autonomous or does it relate to other things? It's relational. So the bell exists as a reality that is subjective and relational. So I could say that the bell is not autonomous or objective, right? Because being autonomous and objective is the opposite of being subjective and relational. So the bell is not objective and autonomous. Why do I need to negate that aspect? Because I see it as if it were like that. our ignorance is the ignorance that affirms that the bell exists in an autonomous, objective way. That's our ignorance. Our ignorance is an affirmation, and to counteract that, I need to generate an opposite negation. And I say, no, the bell is not objective or autonomous, but that lack of autonomy and objectivity, with the so-called emptiness, can exist because there is something. So the bell does exist. Without the bell, then there wouldn't be the lack of intrinsic existence of the bell. And without ice cream, there wouldn't be the taste and the temperature of the ice cream. But at the same time, it's not possible for there to be ice cream that is hot. Even at the same time, there is no bell that can exist in an autonomous, objective way. So what allows the bell to exist as a bell is the fact that it's interdependent, the fact that it's subjective, that depends on causes and conditions, that it's relational, that allows the bell to exist. So the bell it lacks inherent existence. The lack of inherent existence of the bell is the bell. So one doesn't exist without the other. It's like saying, so on one side I have the bell that exists as an entity that is interdependent, relational, subjective, and exists as such. It's a relative phenomenon, and on the other side I have this fact that this relative phenomenon, it lacks intrinsic existence because it's interdependent, and it's interdependent because it lacks inherent existence. There are two sides that uphold each other, two sides of the same coin. When I say form is emptiness and emptiness is form, I'm saying that relative reality and absolute reality, relative reality means everything that exists as subjective and relational, and the lack of objective reality, or the lack of inherent existence, so-called emptiness, they call it absolute reality. In other words, the only real absolute reality that exists is the lack of inherent existence of a phenomenon. Let me explain myself better. In other words, what's absolute reality is that everything's relative. Is there an absolute reality? Yes, there is an absolute reality, and everything is relative. By relative, we mean subjective, relational. So on one side, I have this fact to exist in an interdependent way, in a relative way, subjective, and on the other side, I have this lack of the lack of objectivity, a lack of so one is an affirmation and one is a negation. So I'm saying the same thing because one doesn't exist without the other. If it's empty of intrinsic existence, it's interdependent. If it's interdependent, it lacks inherent existence. Form exists as form because it's interdependent, and because of that, it lacks inherent existence, and it lacks inherent existence because it's interdependent. And one important point of this part of the sutra, and one of the most famous, is the fact that it shows us that there's no absolute reality, the emptiness on one side and then relative reality on another side, and two parallel separate worlds. They're the same thing. We create this distinction because we're not able to relate to reality in a coherent way. Or rather, The only reason why we need to talk about emptiness is because we constantly affirm the opposite. We're constantly repeating in our minds that what we perceive and see, including ourselves, exists in an objective, autonomous way, and saying that it's interdependent, relational, the subjective, it doesn't counteract it directly. What does is that which is directly opposite. It's not objective, it's not autonomous. Why? Because it's subjective, because it's relational. Okay? So when I say form is emptiness, subtompao, form is empty of inherent existence, and the lack of inherent existence of form is also form, in the sense that the lack of inherent existence doesn't exist without the form. I don't know if this is clear. Is it clear? Yes? No? More or less? If you say more or less, that's already good. The sensation, feeling, because the Heart Sutra is very essential. If we wanted to make it a little bit longer, we should read it like this. Here, where are we? So form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Form is not separate from voidness. Voidness not separate from form. Sensation. So sensation, voidness. Voidness, sensation. So sensation not separate from voidness. Discernment, voidness. Voidness, discernment. Discernment not separate from discernment. Composed of the compositional factors, voidness, compositional factors, not separate from voidness, and then we do also for consciousness. So those are the 5 aggregates. So any aspect of our being, form, feeling, discernment, compositional factors, these factors of our personality, our consciousness, also the consciousness that perceives our senses, our mind stream. It doesn't exist in an objective way. It exists only as interdependent aspects, and it's important to understand that they're of this the emptiness of those objects. They're the same nature. Otherwise, one could fall into nihilism, say, okay, the body is empty, so the body doesn't exist, it's all an illusion. No, the body exists. Absolutely. It doesn't exist as it appears. It's important to remember sensation, feeling exists, discernment exists, but it doesn't exist as it appears in an objective, objective way. So we say, okay, discernment is empty. It's empty in the sense, and that emptiness of that emptiness is the emptiness of the discernment is also empty. So it's sort of 2 sides of the same coin. If one thing didn't exist, then the other wouldn't exist. So our sensations, our feelings, our discernment, when we have a feeling of pleasure, how does that appear to us? Subjective, interdependent, and relational, or is it something absolutely objective, full stop? That's how it appears. So this really brings us to reflect on the various aspects of our being, on our body, on our sensations, the values that we give to things, our discernment, the various aspects of our character, of our personality. Our own, also in our own mind. Similarly, feeling. So I'm not really sure about this translation, because you say that all We say all avoidance of form not separate from. So all phenomenon are empty. So if we were to open up a little bit for between the lines here, we should say, similarly, all phenomenon are empty of inherent existence. They have no defining characteristics. So they don't arise, stop. So they don't. There's no inherent arising, no inherent stopping, no inherently being stained, or etc. So when we see something, it begins. How does it appear to us? It's something that just begins in a subjective, relational way, depending on causes and condition, or it just started because it started. It's just there. Nothing just begins in and of itself. Everything that begins as that beginning is subjective and relational. And it's interesting because, how can I say? I don't know if I should say it. Let's imagine that we're like on a plane and we're walking and we look towards the horizon. How does the earth appear to us, as being flat or round? If we were the little prince on his small planet, how would the earth seem to us? It would seem round. So why does the earth seem flat to us? Because the perspective from, we're so small, and given the circumference of the earth, that when we look, we don't have this ability to see the curving of the earth. So the earth appears to us as being flat, and we know instead that it's not flat, it's round. So this is what happens if we start to analyze and start to see that the earth is not flat, and there's so many signs that show us that it's actually round. Similarly, reality appears to us as being objective and autonomous because we don't have this ability to perceive all of these subtleties of change and the relationships among all the factors, things that, how can I say? It's not that everything is just one thing, but we have this tendency to want to see things separately when that's just not possibly. Everything exists in relation to all other things. So we could say that everything is one thing, but it's not even like that either. It's like a dance where one doesn't exist without the other, but they're not even the same thing. So when we go look, we see that all phenomenon are emptiness. They have no defining characteristics. No thing has a defining characteristic. Fire burns, right? But actually the heat of fire, which is a characteristic of fire, is it an intrinsic characteristic or is it relational? Because what is fire? How does fire come? We can see that there are so many so many parts. Take away the oxygen, where's the fire? For example, and we see that it's a collection of many things that create that. So there are no autonomous, independent, and intrinsic characteristics, even if it appears to us like that. fire appears to burn intrinsically, but it's not like that. So that all phenomenon, Shariputra, with all phenomenon, voidness, no defining characteristics. But remember, if we don't put the word intrinsic, we can fall into fall into nihilism. So we need to. So no defining characteristics, no arising, no stopping, no being stained, no being parted from stain, no being deficient, and no being additional. They don't diminish, they don't increase. Actually, we need, in reality, phenomena have characteristics. They are produced, they are results. They do stop, they transform, they end, and then they manifest in a different way. There are phenomena that are polluted, phenomena that generate suffering through interaction, or in non-contaminated, they don't generate suffering. So they're free of ignorance and negative karma. Phenomenon actually, there are characteristics of phenomena that they actually grow and continue to transform, but none of these characteristics exist in an intrinsic way. So in the reading of the sutra, we should read it as similar. It's like that, Shariputra, with all phenomenon voidness, no defining intrinsic characteristics, no arising intrinsically, no stopping intrinsically, no being stained intrinsically, no being parted from stain intrinsically, no being deficient intrinsically, no being additional intrinsically. Because it's like that, Shariputra. In voidness, there's no form, no feeling, no distinction or discernment, no affecting variables, no kind of consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no sight, no sound, no smell, no taste, no physical sensation, no phenomenon, no cognitive source that's an eye up to no cognitive source that's a mind, no cognitive source that's phenomenon, no cognitive source that's mental consciousness. There's no unawareness, no elimination of unawareness, up to no aging and death, no elimination of aging and death. Likewise, no suffering, cause, stopping, and pathway mind, no deep awareness, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Because it's like that, Shariputra, because there's no non-attainment, through there being no non-attainment of bodhisattvas, he or she lives relying on far-reaching discrimination with awareness, with no mental obscuration. Because of there being no mental obscuration, there's no fear, gone beyond what's reversed, thus nirvana, release, complete to the end. In fact, it's by relying on far-reaching discriminating awareness that all Buddhas arrayed throughout the 3 times are full manifest Buddhas in peerless and perfect full Buddhahood. Now let's go back and read it together. The first Shariputra, so just a second, where is it? Where it says Shariputra, every child of the lineage. So addressed like that. So who wishes to conduct his or her behavior in profound and far discriminating awareness needs to behold all around like this. He or she needs to keep in view fully and in detail the 5 aggregate factors of his experience, etc. So tayata, I mean, this is how phenomena are. They so at the same time, now we go to gate. Similarly, so now we need to familiarize ourselves more and more with this lack of inherent existence and form voidness. Similarly, not just with our own body and mind, but with all phenomenon. So all phenomenon. So it's like that, Shariputra, with all phenomena, not just phenomenon in general, but we see that all characteristics lack inherent existence. There is no intrinsic cause, intrinsic result. There isn't an intrinsic purity or intrinsic impurity. So it's important to reflect and observe how every aspect of reality around us appears as being of intrinsic existence, but is actually not. So, Shariputra, this is the paragate. So the first gate and gate are here with this similarly, Shariputra, that makes reference to the path of accumulation and path of preparation, where it's still conceptual, where one realizes that phenomena lack inherent existence, enters into a meditative state, and sees how each phenomenon lacks inherent existence. So and now the paragate, the path of seeing. So because it's like that, Shariputra, in voidness, no form, no feeling, no distinction, etc. No eye, no ear, no nose, no cognitive source, etc. What does this mean? This morning, at a certain point, we said when one enters into a meditative state and starts observing, starting from the bell or one's own body, what appears as being of inherent existence, one deconstructs that appearance as being real and perceives that it doesn't exist as such. And when one enters into that, there's a kind of short circuit that happens because we're not able yet to perceive reality. We're not able to perceive both relative reality and reality that it lacks inherent existence. It's like saying, once I see that there are infinite number of possibilities, at the same time I'm not able to perceive even one. It's like trying to see me and you, but we're interdependent, we're mutually dependent, and when I see that there's this mutual dependence, I am not able to see me and you. There's a kind of short circuit because now we work on an appearance that is objective and autonomous. When you take away that grasping at that objective existence, the mind is not able to see anything except for that lack of intrinsic existence, the so-called emptiness. And once one has a non-conceptual experience, a direct experience of the lack of inherent existence, the so-called emptiness, nothing appears to the mind except that lack of intrinsic existence. So Shariputra, in that experience of emptiness, nothing else appears. There's no form, no feeling, no distinction, no affecting variables, no kind of consciousness, no eye, no ears, no nose, no sight. So the five senses aren't present. The objects of the five senses are not present. No sight, no sound, no smell, etc. And not even the cognitive source, the consciousness of the sense consciousness of the eyes, of our nose, etc. There's nothing other than the lack of inherent existence. So here, that's why it says in emptiness, in voidness, there's no form, etc. So this experience of realizing in a non-conceptual the lack of inherent existence, as long as one is not a Buddha, this creates a kind of shock where there's nothing other than this lack of inherent existence, and you're not able to see anything else. And then here, now we have the 12 links of interdependence. So one would one should meditate on the 12 links of interdependence. So here it says, here he says there's no ignorance. So doesn't mean that these things don't exist. It means that as one is meditating, this state of meditative concentration, where one is having a direct non-conceptual experience of emptiness, only emptiness itself is what appears. So, Shariputra, because it's like that, there's no non-attainment, through there being no attainment of Buddha, but he or she lives on far reaching, discriminating awareness with no mental obscuration. The previous part that said there's no ignorance, and there's no unawareness, no elimination, etc. This makes reference to parasamgate, which means once I've already familiarized myself with the lack of inherent existence of body, mind, and other phenomena, it means that I need to familiarize myself even more. So suffering and the causes of suffering, the sensation of suffering, and the path, and every other aspect is empty of inherent existence. It shows this continuous process of familiarization. Now we get to the part of Bodhi. This is very nice, and this is the next part of Bodhi, because it's like that. Because it's like that, Shariputra. Through there being no realizations and no attainment of bodhisattvas, because there's no attainment. What does that mean, that there's no realization? Because there are no intrinsic realizations. So realizations that they exist, but in an interdependent way. But the state of suffering, or the state of liberation, doesn't exist in an intrinsic way. It doesn't just come from nothing. So, in other words, what's he saying? There is a relative, gradual, interdependent attainment, because it's like that. Through there being no attainment of bodhisattvas, he or she lives relying on far-reaching discrimination, awareness, with no mental obscuration. The Tibetans are just a little bit different according to this. I'm going just to the Tibetan. So, O Shariputra, being like this, Janchu Sempa Namlas, so the practitioners, the bodhisattvas along this path, they don't have realizations, and so Sherab Kiparutuchimpa, they stay because they don't have intrinsic realizations. They stay and they rely on this perfection of wisdom, and they rely on the fact that phenomena lack intrinsic existence, and they rely profoundly on this. and then they rely and they stay there. And in this way, the mind is free from mental obscurations. So appearance of intrinsic existence and the grasping at intrinsic existence. So, and as a consequence, all the mental defilements of anger and fear. Fear makes reference to suffering. Because the realizations are not intrinsic, the bodhisattvas, the practitioners, they rely on and they stay in familiarizing themselves in the emptiness, and by doing that they can free themselves from this ignorance. Chinchi loli shintu tune neten adipet. Chinchi lo means the opposite. So so they stay completely in the opposite, and they reach Buddhahood. So having gone beyond of every error, they reach their final objective, nirvana. Maybe not the opposite, not just error. So they've gone beyond what's reversed. They thus nirvana release. They complete to the end, because there is no state of purity or realization that is objective and independent. It's possible to reach it. I don't know if that's clear. Why is it possible to become a Buddha? Because we're interdependent. Because gradually, by transforming our mind, just little by little, it's possible to transform ourselves and get there. Because the state of Buddhahood is not something autonomous and that doesn't relate to anything. Buddhahood exists as a reality that is interdependent, relational, and being like that. Because it's like that, the bodhisattvas can rely on the perfection of wisdom, and they stay in the perfection of wisdom. They stay there familiarizing themselves. Paragate, parasamgate. They stay familiarizing themselves with the lack of inherent in existence of all phenomena. And this is what that allows them to go far beyond ignorance, the actual opposite point of ignorance. So we have ignorance is grasping at this inherent existence. You go completely the opposite to that. You reach Buddhahood, and there's no longer any distinction between the reality just doesn't appear as being autonomous or of intrinsic existence. At no moment, it's one thing. And because it's like that, far-reaching discrimination and awareness is the great mind-protecting mantra. Oh, sorry. And in fact, it's by relying on far-reaching discriminating awareness that all Buddhas arrayed throughout the 3 times are full manifest Buddhas in peerless and perfect full Buddhahood. By relying and remaining in the perfection of wisdom, the Buddhas of the present are doing like this, and those who will come in the future will be able to do it in the same way, relying on the perfection of wisdom. And because it's like that, far-reaching discrimination awareness is the great mind-protecting mantra. Mantra is actually like is the mind protection. The mind-protecting mantra of great knowledge, the mind-protecting mantra that's unsurpassed, the mind-protecting mantra equal to the unequaled, the mind-protecting mantra completely stilling all suffering. Because of its not being deceitful, it's known to be the truth. In far-reaching discriminating awareness, the mind-protecting mantra has been proclaimed. The real mantra is the actual the real nature of phenomenon. But here we have the mantra Tayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisattva, the actual nature, gone, gone, gone beyond, gone far beyond, purified state, so be it. So here we have Tayata is the real nature, the actual nature. So gone, gone, gone beyond, gone far beyond, purified state. I like, instead of not the actual nature, but it's like this. So it gone, gone, gone beyond, gone far beyond the purified state. So be it. And this is the path to realize. And it continues. Shariputra, a bodhisattva, great-minded Mahasattva, needs to train like that for behavior that's in profound and far-reaching discriminating awareness. Let's remember that Shariputra asked Avalokiteshvara, and Avalokiteshvara answered. He said, the body and mind lack intrinsic existence. The body is nothing other than emptiness, and emptiness is the body itself. They are of the same nature, and you familiarize yourself on many levels, not just the body and mind, but all phenomenon. Have a direct experience through which there is no other objects of perception, if just the emptiness itself, and repeat this direct experience, basing yourself on many other phenomenon, with the 12 links of interdependence, the Four Noble Truths, etc., etc. Doing like this, one relies on and remains stable in the perfection of wisdom. And because there is no pure state, no realization that is autonomous or interdependent, even the Buddha is interdependent. Even Buddha exists in a relational way. And because of that, the practitioner, by relying him or herself and familiarizing himself or herself on the lack of inherent existence, gradually is able to eliminate his own ignorance and the imprints of his own or her own ignorance. The Buddhas in the past have done, and the ones of the present are doing, and the future will do as well. That as it's like this, go beyond, go far beyond purified state. So it, and the various characteristics of the mantra, there's more to say, but we're not going to get into that. At the end it says, O Shariputra, Bodhisattva, great-minded Mahasattva needs to train like that for behavior that's in profound and far-reaching and discriminating awareness. Then the vanquishing master, surpassing all, the Buddha, arising from that absorbed concentration, gave his endorsement. Excellent. Imagine that they finished their discussion, and Buddha opens his eyes, and he says to them, Lexo, Rikibu, excellent, the son of the lineage, excellent, my spiritual son with the family traits. It's just like that that he or she needs to conduct his or her behavior in profound and far-reaching discriminating awareness. It's exactly has been shown by you for the Bodhisattvas, Arhats, Buddhas to rejoice. So Avalokiteshvara. So this teaching was actually given by Avalokiteshvara, because the Buddha only spoke this, but Avalokiteshvara and Shariputra are deeply inspired by the presence of Buddha and his meditative state, that it just influenced them greatly to have this kind of realizations. So these are words that they're not words that were said directly from the Buddha, but they're words that were induced by the the presence of the blessings of the Buddha that came out as this conversation between Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara. So when the vanquishing master, surpassing all, had pronounced those words, the venerable son of Sharadati and the Bodhisattva great-minded Mahasattva, the Arya Avalokiteshvara, and the pair of assembly of those endowed with all, as well as the world gods, humans, anti-gods, and Gandhavara, human musicians, rejoicing, sang praises of what had been declared by the vanquishing master, surpassing all. Yes.
전조 semba sima chima papa chireze wanjo la lexo shejawa chingne lexo rigi pute teshin o te teshin tes jidra kyogi temba teshin to shirage paratu chimba samola chebar chate deshin shebanam ge jesu irango chumden digi dige che katene sidan de masharata tipo da 전조 semba sima chima papa chireze wanjo da tamcheda debe korte dal hadal mi dal hamaida chesar chebe jikte irante chumden digi sumbala ngombara to perciò
So in these few words, we have a short story, the perfection of the perfection of wisdom is a story where Buddha was in a meditative state, and that emanated a great and deep inspiration, and inspired by the blessings of those moments, his presence, came this conversation, this question. The Shariputra asked this question to Avalokiteshvara, and Avalokiteshvara showed that nothing is of inherent existence, and that the process is and showed him what the process is from conceptual to then we continue to familiarize ourselves until we have this direct experience, and then we familiarize ourselves even more, and it shows us that the only way that's possible is by relying on the perfection of wisdom. And that's also why we call it the mother of all Buddhas. The only way to reach Buddhahood is like this. And at the end, Buddha wakes up and says, he comes out of his meditative state and he says, well said. Well said, well said. That's exactly how a practitioner should conduct his conduct if he wants to reach this state. I mean, it's crazy. It's quite amazing when I think. I mean, over 2,500 years have gone by, and this story is still alive today. And it doesn't come to us just like a text to recite. And that happens often. Very often, if we go to Tibet and in China and Japan, many know how to recite the Heart Sutra by heart, but not many really understand what it's talking about, who are able to understand its meaning and practice it. And I don't mean to say that we've understood it perfectly, but at least let's try to look at it with more clarity and apply it to our lives. So two things. There's the aspect of wisdom, and then it's just not enough to understand. We need to familiarize ourselves. At the beginning, I gave the example of a diet, and it seems banal, but it's not. If we really want to develop compassion, generosity, humility, patience, concentration, it's the same thing. Tayata, gate gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisoha. If that's the way it is, understand. I repeat. I familiarize myself until I have a non-conceptual experience. I'm not even able to put it into words, and then I repeat it again and again and again until it becomes, I become one and inseparable with it. And the Bodhi, I've realized it. So in these few words, it's beautiful to see how Tayata, gate gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisoha. There's an infinite number of things. There's a whole path to enlightenment is in this short mantra. Someone might ask me, but there's an om sometimes. Sometimes it's tayata om gate gate paragate parasam gate bodhisattva. And why? Because it's the mantra, the perfection of wisdom, is used in two different contexts. One is related to the sutra, and then there's another when the perfection of wisdom is embodied in Buddha, the mother of all Buddhas. Prajnaparamita would be the mother, the perfection of wisdom. And in the practice within Tantra, we would add the Om. And at that point, it would be Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gati Bodhi. So you can do it with or without the Om. It depends if you're doing a specific practice in certain contexts, and at that point you'll see the Om, or you can do it with or without. Today I wanted to go directly to the Heart Sutra to give a little meaning and also end on time and get to the beginning and end. And I hope to have at least allowed you to take the Heart Sutra in your hands and at least understand what it talks about. So here I would need that's the thing. To conclude, let's read it again and try to listen and try to be in that setting. See see how you can connect with it. See if there's coherence or not. You see that they're not just words. So, Bhagavati Prajnaparamita Readraya Chamdendema Sherabki Parutu Chimpe Nipo, the heart of the far-reaching, discriminating awareness, the vanquishing lady surpassing all. These words have I heard. At one time, the vanquishing master surpassing all was dwelling at Vulture Peak Mountain by the royal city of Rajgira, together with a great assembly of the monastic Sangha and a great assembly of the Bodhisattva Sangha. At that time, the vanquishing master surpassing all was totally absorbed in the absorbed concentration that expresses the multiplicity of phenomena known as the appearance of the profound. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva, great-minded Mahasattva, the Avalokiteshvara, the powerful Lord beholding all around, conducting his behavior in profound and far-reaching discriminating awareness, was beholding all around. In detail like this, he was beholding all around in detail the 5 aggregate factors of his experience and even those as devoid of self-establishing nature. Then, through the might of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra addressed these words to the Bodhisattva, great-minded Mahasattva, the Avalokiteshvara. How does any spiritual child, a son or daughter of the lineage, need to train who wishes to conduct his or her behavior in profound and far-reaching discriminating awareness? Addressed like that, the Bodhisattva, great-minded Mahasattva, the Avalokiteshvara, addressed these words to the venerable son of Sharavdati. O Shariputra, any spiritual son with the family traits or spiritual daughter with the family traits who wishes to conduct his or her behavior in the profound and far-reaching discriminating awareness needs to behold all around in detail like this. He or she needs to keep in view fully and in detail the 5 aggregate factors of his or her experience and those as devoid of self-establishing nature. Form, voidness, voidness, form. Form not separate from voidness, voidness not separate from form. What has form, that has voidness. What has voidness, that has form. Similarly, feeling, distinguishing, affecting variables, types of consciousness, voidness. It's like that, Shariputra, with all phenomenon, voidness. No defining characteristics, no arising, no stopping, no being stained, no being parted from stain, no being deficient, no being additional, because it's like that, Shariputra, and voidness, no form, no feeling, no distinction, no affecting variables, no kind of consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no sight, no sound, no smell, no taste, no physical sensation, no phenomenon, no cognitive source that's an eye, up to no cognitive source that's a mind, no cognitive source that's phenomenon, no cognitive source that's mental consciousness, no unawareness, no elimination of unawareness, up to no aging and death, no elimination of aging and death. Likewise, no suffering, cause, stopping, and pathway mind, no deep awareness, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Because it's like that, Shariputra, through there being no attainment of bodhisattvas, he or she lives relying on far-reaching discriminating awareness with no mental obscuration. Because of there being no mental obscuration, there is no fear, gone beyond of what's reversed, thus nirvana, release, complete to the end. In fact, it's by relying on far-reaching discriminating awareness that all Buddhas arrayed throughout the 3 times are fully manifest Buddhas in the peerless and perfect full Buddhahood. Because it's like that, the far-reaching discriminating awareness is the great mind-protecting mantra, the mind-protecting mantra of the great knowledge, the mind-protecting mantra that is unsurpassed, the mind-protecting mantra is equal to the unequaled, the mind-protecting mantra completely stilling all suffering because it's not deceitful, it's known to be in truth far-reaching discriminating awareness. The mind-protecting mantra has been proclaimed. Tayata om gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhi soha. It's like this. Go, go, go beyond, go far beyond purified state. So be it. Let it be so. Shariputra, a bodhisattva, great-minded Mahasattva, needs to train like that for behavior that's in profound and far-reaching discriminating awareness. Then the vanquishing master, suppressing all arising from that absorbed concentration, gave his endorsement, excellent, to the bodhisattva, great-minded Mahasattva, the Mahayana Avalokiteshvara. Excellent, excellent, my spiritual son with the family traits. It's just like that. It's just like that, that he or she needs to conduct his or her behavior in profound and far-reaching discriminating awareness. It's exactly as been shown by you for the bodhisattvas, arhats, and Buddhists to rejoice when the vanquishing master surpassing all had pronounced those words. The venerable son of Sharavdati and the bodhisattva, great-minded Mahasattva, the Avalokiteshvara, and the pair of assemblies of those endowed with all, as well as the world, the gods, the humans, the anti-gods, and the Gandhavara heavenly musicians, rejoicing, saying praises of what had been declared by the vanquishing master, surpassing all. And like this, we conclude this brief explanation of the Heart Sutra today, dedicated to the Master Keiko. And I leave you. You have a gift. I leave you this gift, and now it's yours, and it's up to you to take care of it and make this your own treasure. So among the greatest practitioners among the story of Tibet and China and Japan and Vietnam, they kept these words among the most precious. So if we can really value them, there's really quite the key for us. So it's time for our dedications.
Nam karatin le chokchur ge padang losan tempe drume sasumgi drove munsel takto ne gyur chi nimo dele tsendele nime koi nisen takto delek pe kuncho sumki chingi lob kuncho sumki ngodrubutsol kuncho sumki trashisho.
at dawn or at dusk, at night or midday. May the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to receive all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Thank you, everyone. Now there will be the Guru Puja here, and there's also some martial arts as well in the yoga room above. And the Guru Puja is here, and the martial arts is in the yoga room. Also in honor of the Master Keiko. Tomorrow morning at 8:30, I'm here for morning inspirations. Thank you, everyone.